Hello, welcome students back. So excited to see you back. In this lab, like I mentioned, we'll need a way to communicate properly to our client if there's an error that occurs when we are returning the data. For example, like I explained here, is when we pass 22, there's nothing. So how would the client know whether our REST API responded back or not? It's just a blank. So we need a way to keep a proper communication. When you ask for something, it either gives you back or tells you the reason I can't give you back for this, no data found, as the server had an error. We need a proper way of communicating via JSON format because most of the client software that tries to connect to our API will either use JSON or XML format. And our job is to respond to with JSON format. So let's get started. So I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to use a PSQL block. Once again, I said this course, you must have some experience in PSQL and SQL. I wouldn't be going to explain what PLSQL is or SQL is. That's a different topic. I'm just going to comment this code out so it doesn't run anymore. And I'm going to paste this, but I'm going to explain to you. This is a declare block where I create a variable of type glob. And then whatever the ID is passed to the URL right here, if everything is good, there is no error, it gets stored into this object. We are creating a JSON object and we are putting it into the variable that we just created here called glob. And let's assume you had put a correct ID. You put 1, 2, and the IDs did exist in the table. You would get a response in a JSON format, which I'll show you in a bit. And let's say you had passed an ID 000 or something, or an ID that doesn't exist, we would actually get an error that no data found for that ID. Like I actually said, we'll get an exception because data will be tried to return in here and we'll throw an exception saying there is no data to be written to this. So technically, an error will occur in the exception block and it will go in here. And what are we doing here? We are saying message, no data found for that ID. And it's good also to catch different kind of errors that we are not catching. So when I'm just going to make my own JSON back. I'll just say status failure, message, data, not insertion because I copied for data, failed to retrieve data. Let's say failed to retrieve data. And this is an SQL error message. So whatever the SQL is trying to throw in error, we'll actually see it. So maybe the table name was wrong, the server was down, the database server was down. At least at the user endpoint, he'll be able to see the reason why he was not getting the response back. So after this changes, let's click save. And now let's see what happens. Now, rather than getting a blank, which will go because there's no category ID 22, we should receive some different kind of information. As you can see, I got message, no data found of the given category ID. If you go in here, I believe I put 22. 22 comes in here. In the database, we don't have it. If you really still want to see it, we can go to Object Browser. I'm going to open it in a new tab. We're going to go back to our tables. Going to go back to the category. I'm going to see data. And there is nothing with ID 22. We only have 5. So what's going to happen is it will not be able to store here. Will be thrown an exception. This exception is no data found. No data found is captured here. And that's why we get this message right here. So at the end, when the client is requesting using his application, they can know, oh, message, no data found for that case. Much friendly error. So they know what's happening. So now let's go ahead and start fixing the rest of our get handlers. And then the next step we'll start finishing put, delete, and post. So let's get started. Let's go ahead and fix the URL that returns entire table of categories. I'm just going to comment it off. We're no longer using it. First, let's see what it was doing so you can see the difference. I just want to go back, make sure it's here, make sure it's this one was query. Let's apply, see what it was doing before. Spawn. It just returns all the items in the category. If you want to see it pretty and Postman, you can just go pretty. As you can see, it has returned entire items, but we are using the SQL format. So if there was an error or something, it's hard for the client who is requesting what error happened. Was the table down? What happened? You don't know. So we are going to use once again Plsql. If everything is good, it will return all the categories. If there is some error, that internal or anything we don't know what could be happening, we would actually return a JSON back saying whatever the error the SQL database catches. So I'm just going to comment this one out. So we are done. This one's out. I'll go back here and put the Plsql statement. Same thing. I'm declaring a variable of club. This time, we know it's not only one item that's been returned. So this is an array of a JSON object because we'll have multiple items being returned. We'll be storing it in this, and obviously the table is this. If there is no error, no issues happening, this will print the JSON that we just created right here. The JSON object that we just created right here. And I have a typo here. It's category name. And we can just have the category image. Let's apply. It is from the category table, as we know. And once again, you have an exception statement. We don't know what errors are coming. We would actually say, we'll put this right here. But right now, I can't replicate any error on my end, but we have to. In a way, you don't know what error is going to happen. If any error happens, unforeseen error, it will come in here and you'll get the error message here. So if everything is good, we should get a JSON object returned back. I'm just going to click apply. And I'm going to say send. And I see an error. So what happened here? Okay, once again, I told you, everyone will face in this error. Please, please, please. And good that I myself did that error, so it sticks in your mind, is this has to be Plsql block, please. It has to be Plsql block. I'll click on it. Now we shouldn't have any problem. Let's go up. Run my Postman and there you go. As you can see, this is what we are returning. It's an array of all the items in the category table. Two more places we are going to fix it. I'm going to go right here by category by query parameter. Let's go there by query parameter. I'm going to go right here. We don't do this anymore. Let's comment it out. Comment it out. I'm going to go right here. Please. The code remains the same, the table is the same, except we already have it set up anyway. The method is coming from URI. So when I test the URL endpoint using Postman, I'm going to do some slight changes. And now that's copied. I just need to know what parameter to use. Query parameters, it's QID to use in Postman. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to bring it here. And you can see this one has no data found and same as any other error. So we'll try to replicate this one right here. I'm going to copy this right here. I'm going to go here. Where's my Postman? It did open. Scat. I'm going to Control V. And this is based on query parameters. So QID is equal to 2. I'm going to say and I was about to do the same error. Let's change it to Plsql. Click save. And when we go back, it should work. As you can see, ID2, it responds by giving one of the ID that we passed here. So that is technically mouse1, web1, mouse, and get ID2. If we want to verify that, we can go that here, get ID is 2, category ID is 2, and you see it's mouse1 web, as you can see. And we can go back, and this mouse, as you can see, there is no discrepancy. That mouse was 1. And now let's try to change the ID with something different, which doesn't exist, the ID. And you can see, message no data found. So what happens here is this ID, right, this number right here, gets substituted right here. It tries to insert the data into the JSON response variable. It can't. An exception is thrown. It either can go in here or in here, but the exception that was thrown was no data found. As we go in here and we get this error message. So the communication handshake between the client and your REST API is in a good way. So the client who is making requests does know what the issue is. So same thing. I'm gonna this off. Don't need it anymore. Paste it. I'm gonna apply changes, and this time I'm going to remember to change it to Plsql block. I'm gonna save it. That's gonna make sure the parameters that gonna be passed with setup is ID is gonna put with ID. So when I send through, this is why header. So when I send it through Postman, just looking at my code, because yeah, it's the same thing. One JSON object, cat, that gets copied here. When the ID gets substituted, when it's good, we return a good value. When a bad ID is passed, no data, it depends on what it is. Assuming you put 13, ID doesn't catch, no data found. If there was something happened to the database, we don't know any kind of error, it'll go into when exception others and throw this error. So let's click apply changes if I hadn't. Copy this. I go back to my Postman. Make sure this is get. And there's params, header. I'm going to change the header to ID. Make sure it's checked. I'm going to set it to 5. And I'm going to send the request. When I send the request, I get it back. You just still want to compare. It is wireless mini speakers 1 web, wireless mini speakers ID 5. ID 5, wireless mini speakers 1 dot WEBP. So let's go. So it's a Postman. That's correct. Now let's put some value 444. Let's and there you go. Message no data found. So let's just do a walkthrough. I'm passing 544. 544 gets substituted right here. Data tries to get inserted into here, which fails. This gets skipped. It doesn't go here. It goes into exception statement. Can't go in here because the exception was no data found. We come into message, and this is the message we see directly as spotted here. Thank you for watching. We have ended the lecture about how to use Plsql block and why do we use Plsql block and not SQL. If you just use SQL, you won't be able to communicate correctly with the connecting client. In real world, REST APIs have to communicate correctly with the client, so the client can troubleshoot the errors on his end, or can contact us if we were the RESTful APIs developer saying there's some issue. I hope you found this lecture interesting and learned something new. And let's start our next lab where we'll do post, put, and delete. See you in the next lab. Just a quick note. All the SQL statements and all the Plsql block will be found in the resources tab. So you don't have to worry, you can download them. Thank you for watching, and once again, see you in the next lab.